Okay, I'm going to call our village board meeting for September 7, 2021 to order. Roll call, please.
Nyla Fry. Here. Phil Willems.
Here.
Bill Random.
Here.
Chris Zellner.
Here.
Aaron Moran. Here. Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Gary Hertzberg.
Here.
Okay, first thing is confirmation of open meeting compliance, public postings, official notice, online availability. Caitlin.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on September 2nd. The final agenda, updated agenda, was posted at all 3 village posting locations on September 2nd. And the final agenda and packet were posted online on September 2nd.
Okay, great, thank you. Next item we have is our consent agenda. Would anybody like anything pulled or look for a motion?
Since there's only one item on the consent agenda, why would we need 11 Amazon Prime memberships?
So we have a business membership and we divide it amongst all the departments. So I code it to all the different departments, but it's one single business membership.
But according to my research, a membership is $119.
That's for a personal one. A business one is
So we have
more
11
expensive.
personal ones?
No, that's how I base the allocation.
Oh, so business ones are more.
They're more,
Ah, okay.
and if each, so we used to have it where each department was buying their own personal one. We merged it together into a business account, but I did the allocation based on the same as if they were buying their old personal one.
That makes sense because I noticed finance paid less than anybody else.
I thought we paid double.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Phil, second by Bill. Random. Any other comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have our public comment section. If there's anybody who'd like to make a comment to the village board on anything on or off the agenda, now is your time to do it. Do we have any forms turned in?
I don't have any forms, but I do have a submitted comment from someone who cannot be here.
Okay, go ahead.
This comment is from Mary Heimbecker. I would like to say thank you to Bill Frederick for stopping by my house on September 1 and discussing the concerns in my letter I sent to the Public Works Committee. It was really very nice to have him take time out of his busy day to talk about the street repairs with me and some ADA things that have been coming up at the village, including the village assessment. Thank you again, Bill, for taking time. Sincerely, Mary.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Next, we have, our first item we have is a public hearing. Public hearing and discussion action on proposed amendment to the zoning code to change the minimum size of efficiencies for all multifamily developments in the village. Tim?
Chair Zellner, thank you. The Plan Commission at its July 12th meeting directed staff to create a draft ordinance that would lessen the minimum square footage requirements for efficiency units from 600 square feet to 500. The request is consistent with recommendations coming out of the 2019 Waunakee Housing Task Force report. And at its August 9th meeting, the Plan Commission voted 6-0 in favor of a recommendation to decrease the size from 600 square feet to 500 square feet. Staff is recommending approval, and that is a summary of the issue at hand.
Board members, questions, comments? Okay, then I'd look for a
Nope,
motion.
you need to have a public hearing.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Brian. It's the mask. I haven't had a meeting like this that we wore a mask in. Usually we're in Zoom.
That's right.
The mask is doing it to me. So I'm going to open the public hearing for this item. Would anybody like to speak? Did anybody put their own form?
No, I have no forms.
Anybody? See, I knew that already. Oh, all right, so I'm going to close our public hearing. Board members, comments, questions? Otherwise, I'd look for a motion.
This looks like it's in line with area that we did research on, and I recommend we approve the ordinance to decrease the minimum required square footage for efficiency units to 500 square feet.
I'll second.
Motion by Phil Williams, second by Aaron Moran. Any other comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Now, under new business, discuss and provide direction to the Village of Waunakee Area EMS District representative on 2020 departmental funding proposal and service contract. Who's introducing this
I
one?
have you, this as your agenda item.
Okay. So, we've had a couple of different meetings in regards to this. I met with Scott Russell the other day, probably a week ago.
Yeah.
Somewhere right in there, to discuss, everything in front of us. We've got, Dr. Random was also present at the meeting, as well as Todd Schmidt and Renee. Brian, were you at that one?
No.
Okay. So there's no attorney present, which is great. So,
Nice meeting.
we had a very calm and gentle meeting.
Very nice meeting.
Easy.
Wow, Brian, I wouldn't.
With that. And so really, we were discussing a lot about the budget for our EMS and some changes that are probably on the horizon here in the not too distant future. And I thought it's great that Scott's here tonight, that he can maybe kind of bring us up to speed a little bit on our conversation and some options that we have and some things we might want to consider as we move forward.
Alright, is it okay if I stay here?
Keith is shaking his head like this. That means yes, you're all good.
Alright. So basically, if you guys remember, a couple years ago, we implemented a 5-year plan. The hope was is that we could make it to the end of the 5-year plan before needing to add any additional staff or run into any major issues. Unfortunately, in front of us, with the growth going on, not just Waunakee, but district-wide, we're seeing ourselves starting to miss a lot more calls on a regular basis. The numbers in here are actually a little bit outdated. I did write this the end of June, I believe. We're on track to miss almost 200 calls this year now at this point. So that really kind of prompted us as a department to look into what kind of options we have going forward. And that's what I created in this document. If you guys have had a chance to read it, are a few options for our commission to look at. Yes, sir.
So just, I know Roberta's writing, scribbling down, when you say missed call, make sure we clarify what missed call means versus people thinking we're not responding.
So what I'm talking about is there are times that we'll get hit with 2 911 calls at the same time, or in a duration where our primary ambulance is at the hospital, on the way to the hospital, something like that, and the second call comes in. If we don't have the second ambulance staffed at that time to be able to take that call, we bring in what's known as mutual aid. And that's one of our neighboring communities will come in to cover the call. That is based off of the closest staffed vehicle. That's all done up at 911 center. So if it's in the northern part of our district, Lodi comes down. If it's in the eastern portion, we'll usually get to Forest or some Prairie. Southern portion will end up with Med 10, which is over kind of by Northport or Middleton. And then over in the western portion, it's either Middleton or Cross Plains will come in. Where you start running into issues, we have all these things in place to be able to still cover the call. So if you call 911, you're still gonna get an ambulance. But you start looking at response times and they start to grow exponentially depending on where that call is. For instance, if you have a call in the southern part of Westport, odds are you're not that far from an ambulance because you got an ambulance on Northport if they're in service, or you got someone in Middleton if one of Middleton's ambulances are in service. Same with up in the village of Dane, town of Dane, you got Lodi fairly close. Unfortunately, it's a little, I don't know if ironic's the word, but the village of Waunakee itself is kind of right in the middle when it comes to mutual aid. And you could be looking at 12 to 15 minute response times. And when I talk response times, that's ambulance on the road. So you add a couple more minutes from time of page to that number before you get an ambulance to the scene. Thank you.
Go ahead. I just wanna make sure people knew what that.
So, the options I laid out, for the commission were options to continue as is, keep doing what we're doing. Which what we're doing right now is we have 2 full-time staff on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we supplement that with the volunteer staff. And then as we get enough volunteers to come on and volunteer for that time frame, we attempt to put the second ambulance in service as we can. Option 2 is the addition of a power truck. This is, if you look at our time of day graph there, you're looking at about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It'd be attempting to staff the ambulance with part-time personnel. As of now, we got about 14 part-time personnel. We just brought on a few more. We would have to do a pretty big hiring for that. The only concern with that, while it looks good on paper, is unfortunately it's kind of Again, ironic that the entire county shares part-time staff. So our part-time staff also run for Fitrona and Middleton and Sun Prairie, so we're all fighting for the same hours the way it is. Sun Prairie has tried implementing something like this in their EMS as well, and they're staffed a little less than 50% of the time they have an ambulance on. With it. Option 3 would be to hire on 3 more full-time employees and then continue to supplement with the volunteer staff. The goal of that option would be is that you would only need 1 qualified volunteer as opposed to 2 to staff that second ambulance, in hopes of getting more people to sign on where we need them to be able to get that second truck in service. And then the last one is the addition of 6 full-time employees to staff up that second ambulance, and then still keeping the volunteer base. Because there is a second issue that we also run into, which is if we get the really high acuity calls where we have to keep the 2 paramedics in back, there's a certain level of skills that we need per the state laws and our local medical direction guidance to keep both medics in the back of the truck. Right now, what we do for the most part, if we only have 2 people on that day, we'll call out fire to come drive our ambulance for us. By keeping the volunteer base on, even with the 2 full-time on each truck, we would be able to fill that gap and not have to ping the fire department quite as often for those types of higher acuity calls. So those are the 4 options, excuse me, that I laid out to the commission last month. Unfortunately, last month we didn't have a quorum to be able to really discuss any of it. And that's when Bill kind of reached out to me and then to his counterparts and ultimately you guys to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but kind of look for direction this evening.
Because what the apologies,
Go ahead.
so what, you want to explain the commission a little bit?
Sure.
Is that all right? Because
Yep, absolutely. So we are collectively owned by 6 municipalities: Village of Dane, Town of Dane, Village of Waunakee, Town of Westport, Town of Vienna, and Town of Springfield. We're collectively owned. All 6 of them have an elected official that sits on a commission. Each one of them gets 1 vote. And then all the motions pass just on a simple majority vote. It's formed by a contract that was written back, Nyla probably knows this better than I do, written back in 1978.
I was hoping Nyla did actually.
But, so all 6 of you have an ownership interest as well as a vote in how the direction of the department goes. That's kind of the commission in a nutshell. We have a monthly meeting. We all sit down, go over everything. If anything needs voting on, it needs voting on. As far as the budgets go, it gets presented usually in September-ish and comes back to you guys and the respective village boards, town boards, and then in October, it comes up for vote. So our meeting is actually Thursday evening of this week.
So to me, the amazing part is that, you know, literally an amazing group of people volunteered and formed an EMS organization 30-some years ago, correct? And what has changed over time is that, you know, for one thing, it's harder to be an EMT than it used to be, by far, as far as structurally. And we have the number of volunteers that we have available to run things has changed. So it became sort of almost what I would consider an incidental cost to the communities, to where now as we hire people, it's become a significant cost. And we would still love to keep the volunteers connected, so we're sort of looking for guidance on how do we, what space do we go? Because I think a lot of people think of the Waunakee EMS as belonging to Waunakee, but it really doesn't. It belongs to the commission.
Mm-hmm.
And the commission, as I said, as I see it, was an amazing structure for a long period of time. And now, as we go, like, what is this? How do we are legally bound to the structure, as I understand from Brian from previous discussions.
Well, we have a contract right now.
We have a contract with the structure of the commission, and again, it has served and may continue to serve, or we may even want to expand it or contract it or anything that goes with efficiencies. But like he's saying, we're sort of in the island. We're furthest away from help in the town, in the village, and to me, it's an important safety issue, and that's why why we're talking about, because I think we could just let it go and it'd probably endure for a while, but it makes me, I don't think that's a good option for the long run, so.
So, part of this, and Scott, maybe you can talk about the cost, for the board to hear them, what the differences are between those options, those four options.
Significant, I guess is a good way to put it. Continuing as is, if you look at just the Village of Waunakee portion, continuing on as is with the 5-year plan increase, you're looking at a $2.50 per capita. That's how we figure out the division of costs. Increase, or roughly $36,000. I'm trying to do some quick math in my head here. And then I included what I call a fully funded option for option one, just to show that we'd have to continue to phase in on a yearly basis, until we got up to the $34.50 per capita, or the $496,765, which would be an increase of $173,000 for the village. Which under the current 5-year plan, that's factored in to keep continually incrementally growing year by year by year. Option two is the addition of a power truck, which would see pretty much everything remain the same way that it does now. And that would see your guys' cost go up to $40 per capita, or a total of $575,960, which would be roughly a $52,000 increase. Option three is the addition of 3 full-time employees. These would be proposed to be hired mid-year to kind of ease the cost in, which would see that rate per person go up to $39.25 per person, and a total increase of roughly $240,000 in your budget. Now that's only for 2022, so I included the 23 budget and what that would look like for that same option, because that would be the first year that you'd be funding it fully, as opposed to just half year, which would see that then go up an additional just under $100,000, and per capita rate of $46. And then lastly, the additional 6 full-time employees, again starting mid-year for 22, would go up to the $46 per person, or roughly $340,000 for the village. And then for 2023, the full year cost would go up to $55.25 per person, which would be an additional roughly $130,000. Now, there is an aspect to this that really makes EMS unique from the majority of municipal departments, especially public safety departments, in that our department is roughly, my goal is to keep it 50-50, as far as tax base covers 50% of the cost, and then run revenue kind of makes up the other 50% of the cost. We do have room to be able to increase our run revenue. That's a decision that has to be made at the commission level, so I did not include that in here, because that's a conversation we need to have there, as far as how our rate structure looks and those kinds of things. My personal philosophy has always been is that taxes are used to make sure the service is there and prepared, and then the end user fees are to actually use the service to roll the trucks and go out and take care of them. So there is some more revenue to be had. If you look at the revenues and look in fairly closely, you'll notice that the only time that the revenues really go up is when we look at the 6 full-time or the last option. Reasoning for that is with the other options, we cannot guarantee that second ambulance. The other options are just trying to get a mandate to try to improve it as much as we possibly can, but we can't guarantee to make those calls. Therefore, I've always been fairly, I guess, conservative in my income budgeting, because it is kind of a big unknown. There's a lot that goes into it. So I really am careful not to overestimate revenues. But I wasn't able to add anything else in there until we pretty much knew that the ambulance would have been fully staffed for that entire year to pick up those calls.
Okay,
Have questions?
go ahead now.
I just want a clearer picture of things. I At one time, it was the plan for the office manager to pick up backup calls when they came in. Is the office manager currently doing any calls?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then another question is the number of calls that Waunakee EMS doesn't be able to go to, or that we miss, is it higher than other communities, do you think, or is it approximately the same, or close to the same?
It really depends community by community, I guess is a good way to put it. To put it in perspective, Fitzrona, when they added they were the last one to add a full-time ambulance. They were at about 400 calls per year being missed. The ones that I've looked into before are missing anywhere between 50 to 150 calls, per year, depending on where you are and who they are.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And then my last question is, were there any calls that were missed due to both ambulances being out and there was a need for a third situation?
Yes, we're at 6 right now.
Okay,
For the year.
thank you, thank
Yep.
you.
Okay. So, with all the comments that I've heard and what I heard in our meeting the other day, the percentage that we're paying for EMS as a village is about 70, roughly. Is that correct?
Roughly, yes.
Okay, roughly 70% of it. And I think that it's important that we study, since when this was originally established, as Bill said, this was a volunteer, much smaller situation, and it's grown. All the communities have grown. We've grown probably by far the most. And we have one vote. And whenever these things come in front of us, we can be outvoted any time. So we still have to fund, but more than likely we're gonna fund, is what ends up happening. The others assume that we're gonna fund. And I think that just puts us in a difficult position right now, because our budget, obviously these are significant numbers we're talking about that are going out. Flip side of that, our EMS has done a fabulous job over all the years and have continuously given great care to our community. So we need to not forget that, but I think that we need to look at, what our options could be out into the future. Kind of keep things as is. Right now, that's one of the options. Bill is looking, he's gonna be at our meeting coming up here. So he's looking for some guidance from all of us on what we can do, or what we should be doing or thinking about doing. And in our conversations the other day, the as-is may be what everybody else likes. Because the budget, we have to make this decision now, and we're gonna be doing our budgeting season very quickly. And we have probably some room that they may not have in our budget. And that could be difficult on them as municipals, to even support anything that's even larger than as-is right now. They may not have the capacity to do it. So, that's where I'm at with this right now, as far as my recommendation, but all of you need to weigh in as well. We're talking about a need that we have to make sure we provide for our community, and there's different options that we can look at. I'm not saying dissolve the EMS, don't take it that I'm saying dissolve the EMS. I'm saying that we have to look at all the options that are potentially on the table, which could include potentially saying we're gonna have a privatized EMS. It could be that. It could be some different form of how we're operating this, meaning maybe we're gonna partner with Westport, or maybe we're gonna partner with one of the others, and we're gonna have the EMS, and the others, we can buy them out kinda per se. I mean, I don't want the headline to be that Waunakee's gonna buy out the others. That's not the intent, but we need to look at what our options are for the community, because our community expects great service. And when I hear, and everybody hears, missed calls, Waunakee's the most at risk because of where everybody else is to get to those calls. The residents aren't gonna be happy with that, and I'm not happy with that either. So we need to study this, I think, over the next year. Give us a little time, since we have to make a budget decision right now. And I think the as-is is where I'm leaning right now. Gary, I'm just gonna go around and see what your guys' thoughts are.
Is it split up based on the assessment of the village? What percentage of the assessment?
Okay.
It's a per capita
Population.
population.
Okay,
Fire is assessment.
okay. Well, I've got the same concerns that you know, it seems like we should have more representation, you know, on the EMS board, so I have some concerns there, but I think we've kind of established levels of service in the community, and I think we need to keep those levels of service, so, I mean, I would be in favor of funding this to make sure we continue a level of service, you know, that people expect.
Okay. Nyla, did you have any other comments? I know you had your questions.
First of all, I'd like to thank the EMS for their service over many, many years. Volunteers did it for a long time, and the quality of the service has continued, and I appreciate that. I guess I would like to look at all avenues that are possible to see, you know, the affordability down the road and what we can do to, you know, continue the great services, but also keep it affordable. And I don't know if that word even exists when it comes to medical care and emergency care, but, you know, there are many things that are affecting the budget and many budget needs, and, you know, our tax money is only going to go so far.
Sam?
I think we all have the same concerns here. We want to get this thing funded, but we want to flesh it out. And I agree with you, Chris. I think as is for the time being, I'd love to increase it now, but I think we have to have it go before the commission and flesh it out with the other municipalities as to what they're able and willing to pay. Obviously, their budgets are a little more stretched than ours are, but that would be my route.
Okay. Phil?
It looks to me like, the way things are going, that we're going to be sooner or later at either option 3 or 4. Under option 4, let's see, would we be, how many calls do you think we'd miss?
Well, if you go off of the 6 that we're at right now, the first year, maybe 10 to 12, give or take. It's kind of a weird formula when you start looking at vehicles and how many staff you need. You start to hit that 15 to 18, 1900 a year is when you start looking at needing that second ambulance. And then you're usually around 3,000, 3,200 before you start seeing these same numbers of missed calls again. So it's not really a finite, you know, 1,000 calls per ambulance type of deal. It's more of an exponential growth going up that way.
And then your best estimate is, a lot of the changes are requirements from the departments above us. Are those changes going to be a little bit more stringent on us that you see coming forward?
So my biggest concern as far as that goes is the education that goes into new EMTs these days. In 2022 is starting, there's new hour requirements for basic class. I don't know how many you went through when you went through back in the day.
Not half of what you do now.
But starting in 22, talking with MATC and our local tech colleges that do this, they're not gonna be able to sneak it into one semester anymore. So it's gonna be a 2-semester, year-long course, 2 nights a week plus Saturdays and your clinicals and those types of deals. And where the concern comes in is we've got our few people that have been there for a long time. You know, our residents that are here helping out the community, those kinds of things. We really rely heavily on college students. And college students just being able to commit to a year long like that. Most of our students are nursing, pre-med, pre-PA, I don't know if that's an actual title or not, and can't commit to a cross-semester course like that. So it's got all of us kind of concerned.
Thank you.
Just one comment on that, Phil. So unfunded mandates from above is really part of what's happening.
Yeah, that's really a big part.
Is the requirements. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing because people are getting a better education and better care for people, but there was no funding coordinated with getting that education out there or the timing of making sure we had enough people quickly enough, based on the length of time that it takes to get through.
To use the term unfunded, I do want you to be able, we do get something that's called Act 102, it's FAP funding from the state. We get approximately $5,000 a year to go into new EMT training. That handles about 1.5 people a year. So I just want to make sure we do get a little bit, but nothing substantial enough.
I put it under basically an unfunded mandate, but yes.
Yeah. Especially the turnover we have now, it's nothing, that's pretty much unfunded.
You're right, at 1.5 people.
Yeah.
So, Aaron?
Yeah, is it unique, the situation we're in, that we're that reliant on volunteers compared to our neighbors, or I guess anywhere?
It's all over the board.
Okay.
You know, you go down to Middleton that has the same call volume as us, and they're 100% full-time with 2 ambulances. You go over to DeForest, who's a couple hundred less than us, and they have a setup almost like ours. They're sending people through class now to kind of work up to the same thing. It's really dependent on A, call volume, and B, just honestly the financial capabilities.
And then is there, I guess, any talk on the other side of going like regional and more of a link up everywhere?
So we are having discussions now, actually with Middleton and Cross Plains, about the possibility of a consolidation and what that would look like. Right now, we're at the point where it's myself, Chief Wunsch from Middleton, and Chief Mabry from Cross Plains are coming up with a consolidation plan that we'd lay out the end of September to kind of start that ball rolling. Now that's something regardless of what happens with this decision process that I'm hoping will continue to go forward. I think in the long run, again, this is just me personally, that consolidation is gonna be the best way to avoid costs. I hate the term cheaper, but to avoid costs in the future. We all have a lot of the similar issues, if you will, such as Cross Plains is going through the same issues we're having, only it's with their primary 1 ambulance instead of our second one. Those types of issues, and we're hoping that working together, we'll be able to avoid some costs down the future. I don't know what kind of time frame that looks like, but we've been working on it for, oh boy, 6 months now, 7 months, something like that. We've been meeting on it.
And then, kind of on that same thing, if we're fighting for these part-time employees, are the people we're sending to paramedic training then leaving because we can't offer them?
No, so we do make them sign a 2-year contract.
Okay.
So once they're licensed, they have to provide us with 2 years of service at a minimum. But with that being said, when they do become part-time with us, you can't obviously live off of part-time.
Yeah.
So then they go and look for additional part-time elsewhere, and so that's where you end up on 2 or 3 departments. You actually see the same with full-time. So like one of our full-time employees now is out on medical, but he also runs part-time for another department in his off time. So now collectively 2 of our departments are down a person instead of just 1.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill, any other comments?
Again, I echo everybody's, it's been an amazing service over time, and then it becomes this, I think everybody, the change was gonna happen somewhere, cause the requirements went up, and the time for the pre-students is gonna go away, right? I mean, it's a very popular pre-med option to go there, but if you're doing a year of it, it's really hard to do right now, I mean, to get in there, so. I think the transition from volunteer to professional system is obviously happening. I'm gonna stay with the as-is and try to, if it's reasonable to everybody, or whatever you guys think here in the end, but I would love to have it, you know, a marked step, like we did the 5-year plan. I'd like to see the same thing for where we're going on this.
Yeah, and that was it in our conversations with Renee, in the meeting. We don't have a lot of time right now because of where our budget stuff falls to make a really solid decision. So the as-is seems to fit best right now. And
Gives us more time, like you said, to look at what are the options versus trying to absorb, 300,000 more into our budget right now.
correct.
Because my understanding is the other communities have budget limitations, right? I mean, that they can only raise.
We all have budget limitations. We just have possibly a bit more cushion than other places have that we hold that for an emergency, and this might be considered that. But some places are right at their limits and might struggle, because even though we have the biggest chunk, on a percentage basis, this is large to some of the smaller communities. So they might not have the cushion to absorb it that we might.
Which comes back to the whole concept of, we could say we want this, and they could say no. We only get one vote.
And in their defense, they have been they basically turn and look down the room to say what we wanna do. I mean, but it is, the reality is that they would have the votes to change whatever we want to do.
So that's, I guess we gotta figure out where everybody's at right now. If you're okay with the as-is, I'm looking at studying it over the next several months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it takes. So we're prepared for next year's budget, whatever we wanna do for our potential in the future. That's where I'm at. So I'm gonna make that motion. Or do we need a motion for this?
It's just
'Cause we're
providing
giving
feedback.
advice to
Just
Bill.
advice, yeah.
So I'm in the as-is camp. Gary?
I'm good with you. I think you just need to have a better plan in place. So,
Pam?
As is.
Aaron?
I guess as is, it's hard, you know, we hear these like numbers in the minutes because, you know, we say quality of service, but that could be, you know, really life-changing for someone, so, you know, I think we all take that very seriously, but, I agree with the reality of where we are in the position of that, so, as is. But I want us to really keep this a priority and make sure.
Nyla?
As is, and I agree with Aaron that we need to keep it a priority and work hard on it so we can hopefully come to some consensus as which direction we should go.
Sounds good. Phil?
As is until we get the proper budgeting. And
Is that strong enough
Yep,
information?
yep, thanks.
Scott, thank you for coming in and sharing with us.
Thank you, Scott.
Sorry, I have to bounce quick.
You can walk, you don't have to
You can
bounce.
walk, don't bounce,
Yeah.
don't bounce. Thank you, guys.
All right, next we've got discuss and take action on Strand Task Order 2104 related to 2022 Public Works improvements. Tim, is this you or is it Bill? Bill stood.
I'll get it
so-
started. Basically, before you put it, Aaron and I, for those who haven't met Aaron Yankee, sitting in the corner here, that's our new village engineer, put a 5-year plan together. We presented it last week at the Public Works Committee. Pretty much, they approved it, liked what we had. So what we're looking to do now is approve a task order so that Strand can basically start the design work on the streets we're looking at for 2022, 2023, and 2024, so that we can get things rolling.
Board member questions? Nyla, your public
I
works,
just
go
wanted to
ahead.
make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to approve the amendment to Strand Task Order number 20-08 related to 2021 Public Works improvements.
That's the next agenda item.
Oh, did I, I'm sorry about that.
You're okay. It's actually an easier one to read than you did.
Page 53.
Here, Phil, give that to Nyla.
Okay.
she's got it.
Okay.
Okay. Approved Strand Task Order 2008 related to 2022 Public Works improvements.
Okay, motion by Nyla Fry, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Sam Kaufman. Any other comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have discuss and take action on amendment number 1 to Strand Task Order number 20-08 regarding 2021 public work improvements.
Okay, this is just to continue so we can finish up 2021 projects for this year. So, any questions?
Any questions? Nyla, your chair.
Um,
Works.
I move to approve the amendment to Strand Task Order number 2008 related to 2021 Public Works improvements.
Okay, motion by Nyla
I'll
Fry.
second.
Second by Aaron Morant. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Next, we have discuss and take action on information technology managed services bid proposals. Caitlin?
Renee and I are going to co-present this to you. I apologize, I have a head cold, so I will do my best to talk fast so my voice doesn't give out. But the village board received an update at your June 21st meeting about the managed services RFP that we were going to be publishing during the month of July. We did publish that managed service RFP. A copy of that was included in your packet for your review. So to help us through this entire process, we engaged and asked for assistance from the city of Sun Prairie. They let us use their IT director, Don McDermott, to help us through this whole process, so it wasn't Todd, Renee, and I reading IT proposals, which were very
Or
much.
even writing the RFP.
Yeah,
He assisted us with
with all of that.
crafting the RFP since we are not technical or IT technical professionals.
So it was really great to have him as part of our team to help us through this whole process. So that was the review team, was Don, Renee, Todd, and myself. At the deadline, we received 12 proposal responses. Out of the 12, 7 were deemed realistically feasible for the village to consider. The remaining 5 were ruled out because they were out-of-state companies and they would have charged for on-site service and things like that. We just decided that that was not feasible for our needs as a managed service contractor. Of the 7 proposals, we reviewed them and we decided to interview 3 firms. We interviewed IT Strategies Group, Marco, and Wildcard. We did those interviews on Monday, August 23rd. After those interviews, we decided to advance IT Strategies Group to another informal meet and greet with the CEO of the company and his team, and we held that meet and greet on August 26th. Following that meet and greet, the review team agreed to recommend to the village board that we engage in a 3-year contract with IT Strategies Group to provide managed IT services for the village. With us tonight is Kevin McDaniels. He's a Waunakee resident and the CEO of IT Strategies Group. So he can answer any technical questions about his proposal. And I'll turn it over to Renee to kind of talk about the budget of this.
Yeah, so you'll see in the packet, the budget impact. Impact on the 2022 budget would be just about $58,500 for the annual labor and costs. We'd have some initial onboarding to get all the things placed on our computers and devices and servers and such of about $3,200. And then up to an additional $20,000 for either enhanced endpoint protection, which is protection on the end users, or other security enhancements that might be necessary. So, so the total that we're thinking for 2022 would be, oh shoot, I didn't do the math on that. $83,748, I think, all in. So that seems like a large amount. We knew it would be because we're actually asking for services we've never had at the village before. IT Strategies Group had previously helped us with our cybersecurity work, and also has helped us develop policies and training. And as part of that, I think we brought this up before, we did find some areas where we were maybe a bit weak in our cybersecurity, and we are looking to beef that up and have enhanced services with a full managed service provider versus what we have now is called like a break fix. So if somebody's having an issue, their computer doesn't turn on, we call our provider and they try and figure out why. But we don't have any advanced monitoring of our systems, making sure all of our systems are up to date. We don't have any training in place. We've never had any IT policies. So we went into this thinking we needed to beef up our what we had in terms of IT. So we knew it would be an increase. Back a year and a half ago, we had the La Follette students from the UW also assist us with some cyber, and they did a survey of about 20 similar sized municipalities throughout the state of Wisconsin and what they were spending on their IT, and we were the second lowest out of those 20. So that, that was kind of what, started the ball rolling, that we need to beef this up because our spending just really hasn't kept up with the growth of our systems and our employees and things like that. So,
And I'll just add that our current IT service provider has been with the village for 20 years.
Some years.
We don't have a formal contract with them. So this is a good step of formalizing our IT managed services and our security platforms, is going through this process of getting an actual formal contract and agreement with the service provider.
So that's all I was gonna say about that, but happy to answer any questions, as is Caitlin and Kevin.
Questions for folks?
So I'll just say, we're recommending as staff that you authorize the village administrator to sign a 3-year managed IT services agreement with IT Strategies Group, contingent upon final review of the agreement with the village attorney and background check on anyone working on our systems.
So is this 83,000 a year for every year, is that what it is?
So it would be, well, the 3,200, though, that's a one-time cost, but it would then be about 78,000 per year going, well, for the duration of the 3 years, it's a fixed rate. And I've currently, in my draft budget, I've put this in there already, knowing that we'd have to add it.
So I'm just gonna say, within my professional life, IT is the scariest thing that we talk about, and the potentials that are out there. And I think that it's important that we keep our village employees, our village records, everything as safe and secure as we can possibly make them. Not that we haven't in the past. I don't like putting out there before we get going, that we have weaknesses in there and that people can
Well,
attack us, but
Right, we may.
within that,
There's always
so-
improvements. I mean,
Correct.
we're as secure as, we think we should be, but we can always do better.
So I am not a techie person. I get trainings on what I'm supposed to do and not supposed to do as employees, and I hope we are doing a good job with our staff, to make sure they know what they should and shouldn't be doing. These things are, anybody can take into that and hack into it in 2 seconds, if they really want to find out everything they want about you. So, am I right?
Unfortunately, yes.
So, very, very important that we keep up to date with this, and if we aren't right now, we're catching up as fast as we can, so. Gary?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the village administrator to sign a 3-year managed IT services agreement with IT Strategies Group, contingent upon final review of the agreement by village attorney and satisfactory background checks of company representatives assigned to work on the village account.
Motion by Gary Hertzberg, second by Dr. Random. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next we have, thank you for being here tonight. You're welcome to stay the whole meeting if you'd like, but you don't have to.
It's a good civics lesson.
Okay. Next, we've got discuss and take action on annexation ordinance and annexation agreement for proposed annexation of land owned by Stotz Family Partnership LLP at the corner of Hogan Road and State Highway 113. Tim, is this you?
Sure, this will be as brief as possible. Thanks, Chair Zellner. The request before you actually involves 2 motions. This is in regard to an annexation request by the Stotz Family Partnership for about 27 acres of land, inclusive of the rights-of-way of Hogan Road and State Highway 19 and 113 on the north side of the property. The Plan Commission recommended approval of the request 6-0 at their August 9th meeting. The annexation is consistent with the village's comprehensive plan, and the proposed annexation agreement will address statutory payments to the town of Westport as well as responsibility for the future construction of public improvements. Staff is recommending approval of both motions as stated on the packet.
Board members, questions? No questions? Quiet? Okay, then I'd look for a motion.
Okay, I was out talking to the Stotz guys just this last week, and I make a motion to approve the annexation ordinance conditioned upon execution of the annexation agreement by the Stotz Family Partnership LLP and the village.
Okay, motion by Phil Wilms. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by, was that you, Sam?
Yep.
By Sam Kaufman. Any other comments? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. And we have one other motion.
Move to adjourn?
You're a little ahead of yourself there.
I just want to get in there.
He wants to get that one every time. No, that would be the second motion on the Stotz property.
Oh, dang. So close.
I'll make this motion. Motion to approve the annexation agreement between the village and Stotz Family Partnership LLP, subject to final review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Gary Hertzberg. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right.
Okay, all right.
You're just too tired.
Next, we have discuss and take action on agreement with Addy Advantage for consulting related to local business support marketing strategy. Who's got this one? Tim?
I'll take this one again as well. Thank you, Chair. You may recall at the July 19th meeting, there, staff had given a presentation on the expenditures associated with the American Rescue Plan Act. And this particular piece involved some monies that are hoped to be allocated for a marketing proposal on behalf of the village, to market the village itself. This request, I believe it was Nyla who asked for a little bit more information and specificity about the use of the funds. And so staff met with a few different agencies to come up with a more thought-out and thorough plan for these funds, and that proposal is in your packet. Staff is recommending engaging the services of Addy Advantage to create a strategic marketing message, which would then be followed by, at a later date, the actual creation of the message and the supporting media. So we're not gonna simply just go out and throw a sign up on a billboard, for example, or some YouTube videos and so forth. We need to first create the message. That's what this piece would do. And then based on that message, we would then likely issue an RFP to create the balance of the marketing campaign. At this point, would probably last somewhere in the area of 12 to 24 months. So we'd get some value out of those funds. We could use them in several mixed media campaigns. So that's really it. Again, the proposal is in the packet. It's really for the first piece of this to work with Addy Advantage. So staff is recommending approval, available for questions.
Board members' comments, questions? So my only comment or question, Tim, is with this, I tried to find it in here and I haven't located it. How are the businesses engaged right off the bat with this? Because to me, I think business knows their business better than government. And I don't want to be doing something that's telling, here, we're going to promote your businesses, but it might not even be what they're looking for. So I'm trying to figure out how the business community is engaged into this, and I don't see it in here.
So this is more of a campaign on behalf of, or to the benefit of the village as a whole versus a specific individual business. So it's, as you may recall in the information that was included a couple months ago, there were approximately, I think it was in the neighborhood of 48,000 in lost revenue due to certain factors associated with COVID. So the hope is to reinvigorate the brand, if you will, of Waunakee, to create that awareness out there to patronize as many businesses as possible. So it's really not to speak for any one particular sector or business, but really to, again, let people know in the region, we're here and come to Waunakee.
So again, I'm just, my concern, everybody, so you know, is that I think the business community needs to say, here's what we'd like the village to do as well, not just, we're gonna do this. And it may fit what their needs are, it may not. We're trying to brand our village. I think we should be engaging them because they would want our village branded a certain way as well for people to come here.
Well-
I'm not a business owner, but like that, Phil, you're a business owner. What is your take on that?
I think there are businesses that actively brand their business, and there are other businesses that just tag along. So the ones that just tag along are gonna like this. The other ones are not gonna wait for it. They'll just keep going all out. So I don't know if it's gonna have a good deal, but I don't wanna not do something.
Okay.
I think in the past, we've had, we've gotten, those in business magazines, we had inserts in there. I think it's important that Waunakee, brand itself and has that brand that we're, community that likes local businesses, we support them. And so, every business has the opportunity to brand themselves and promote their businesses. I think what Tim is talking about here is more, branding Waunakee and what we do for, our businesses, and we support them. And so I think we're just trying to drive that. So I don't have a problem with this. I think it's, a good thing for the community to do.
Yeah, and we don't really have like a destination marketing organization at all. We charge part of that to the chamber, but, and my understanding of this proposal is like to gain, like, get an idea and like learn what business is there and what, the assets are, like, not necessarily like, we're speaking on, our top 10 destinations, but as a whole, what could anyone find here, I guess.
Okay.
So is this like to bring the other locality, people that live in other localities to our locality? I mean, local localities, is that, is that the concept, or are we trying to bring in, tourism?
Yeah, so good question. So that's part of the messaging piece of this, is to do to have this firm do the background information to see what's missing, and say what consumers do we want to attract here? How wide a net, if you will, do we want to cast? Do we want to make it just Dane County? Do we want to make it Wisconsin? Do we want to make it Midwest? Because that's going to then obviously factor into whatever media buy that follows, how big or small that will be. So part of this strategic messaging is going to go toward that end. How wide a net will we want to cast? Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Natalie, go ahead.
I have a question on page 100 of our packet. Under investment, there's something that I would like explained. It says the fee for professional services for the proposed scope of work is $9,500 plus out-of-pocket expenses related to travel. Travel costs will be billed at cost. If Waunakee is interested in adding the optional component above, that will be an additional fee of $2,000. Can anyone explain all that to me?
Sure. So the staff is not recommending that additional option. We feel we have enough information internally, or we can do with other partners to get that information. So that additional 2,000 wouldn't be part of this request. And as far as travel, I don't know, we don't anticipate a lot of travel expenses. The firm is local in terms of, they're relatively close, based out of Madison, so it's not like, I don't believe they're going to be flying somewhere to learn X or Y. I think there's a lot of resources that they have already, that they can bring to the table.
But what about the fee for professional services, is that something that you're saying our office would take care of? Or the fee for professional services for the proposed scope of work is $9,500?
The latter. The fee for the proposed scope of the strategic messaging effort would be $9,500, and then whatever ancillary travel expenses. Probably mileage between Madison and Waunakee.
So is this proposal, how much is the total proposal then?
95 plus whatever those travel expenses may be.
So I think what you're getting is, what is the guesstimate? Did they give us any kind of guesstimate what their expenses might be?
No, they didn't, to be honest. A
So
few
would it be
$100s.
appropriate for us to put a cap on it, like X amount of dollars?
So I think we need to, it has to be less than 10, I believe, to be consistent
We want to
with.
keep it less than 10 for this first phase.
Right.
Okay, so Brian, would you recommend that we put a cap in there or not?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's, if the services are $9,500 and the expenses are not capped at this point, but you can only spend $10,000 on this based on whatever's occurred in the past, you cap the additional expenses at $500.
No, I understand what what's the goal of this project is, but I'm wondering how many small businesses in town feel that with these types of projects that it really doesn't improve their business, it doesn't help them, and if there's other ways that the money could be spent to directly help small businesses who have not received funding from other places and lost money because of COVID. That's just one of my thoughts.
Gary?
Hey, Chris, I'd make a motion to authorize the Community Development Director to execute agreement with Addy Advantage Consulting related completion of the local business support marketing strategy and authorize the use of ARPA allocation to fund the project.
Okay, motion by Gary Hertzberg. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can I ask a question? Do you want the cap of $500 on the expenses as part of
And a
that?
cap of $500 on expenses.
Okay, so Aaron, are you good with that with your second? Okay, so we have a motion by Gary, second by Aaron.
Think Sam has-
Comments?
I have
Sam,
a
go ahead.
question. It mentions in the timeline here that the goal is to complete this and be ready to distribute RFPs in early fall. Is the plan to bid out the second portion?
Yeah, at this point, that, yes. In anticipation that that's gonna be more than 10,000, correct.
Okay, any other comments?
No.
Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. Next, we have discuss and update regarding COVID-19 pandemic.
So this is an update for the village board based on your action you took at your August 21st village board meeting. You had approved a motion that required mandatory testing for employees who did not receive the COVID-19 vaccine yet. Since that meeting, staff has been working with our village labor attorney to implement a policy. The policy has been implemented and sent out to staff. Staff, all current employees on payroll, so that's about right around 150 employees for the village of Waunakee, are required to submit a documentation of vaccine by today. Or if we don't receive a documentation of a vaccine, either request an exemption due to health or religious reasons, or comply with a weekly testing requirement. As of right now, we have about 5 employees who are going through the exemption process, who have requested an exemption either for medical or religious reasons. And we're waiting on just under 50 employees to complete and submit their vaccine documentation. We've had 1 employee resign over the testing requirement as well. Our testing will begin next week, the week of September 13th. And we are working with Hometown Pharmacy to provide testing for employees during a designated time. Lisa over there has been wonderful to work with, if you guys know her. She's agreed to set aside a morning of hours before she actually opens to the public to get our normal, to get employees through. If an employee works either evenings, weekends, or works night shifts like police department, Scott at EMS has agreed to serve as a backup testing site for those employees. They can set up an actual appointment with EMS. And as long as the rig doesn't get called out, because obviously those calls for service are more important than testing, an employee will be tested there as well. If neither of those options work for an employee, they can get tested at any of the Dane County sites. We are requiring the PCR test be completed. A testing documentation is due by noon on Fridays from those employees who are unvaccinated. So we continue to work through this, and overall, for a lot of employees, it was just sending us their vaccine card and they're done. Some other employees have had more in-depth questions, which is, Todd and I have been fielding those over the last couple of weeks, but after today, tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with Becca, our HR and payroll specialist, and we're going through that list, verifying with department heads that you agree that these people probably aren't vaccinated, or do we need to tap them on the shoulder to get them that card? Because, people are on vacation, things happen, people forget. And then we'll move forward with testing emails to those employees with all of the expectations for that testing documentation.
Okay.
So if there's any questions for me,
Sounds good.
If someone chooses now to get vaccinated, they'll just update with you.
Yep, and we've had 3 employees choose to start the vaccination process since this policy came out.
And any new employees, that'll start right away.
We're now asking for either the vaccine card.
Okay.
We're making them aware of this policy right away. They're onboarding.
Okay.
We kind of hit it at the right time because all of our summer help are kind of phasing out, and we're going into a new season where we're kind of shifting over. So it was kind of a good point to kind of make this policy because it's not like we're chasing around 150 high school kids or umpires. We're kind of phasing into a new season of sports over the summer.
Thanks, Caitlin.
You're welcome.
Bill, you got any comments?
Well, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was great to come back from.
Oh, the
vacation.
COVID thing is still on. I'm sorry. There are still plenty of people in the hospital, mostly unvaccinated people, as everybody probably is aware. There are some people, the immunodeficiency people that haven't been able to get their boosters that are showing up too. So It is still here. Fortunately, this week from Waunakee, I don't think we have any, so that's pretty good.
That's a good update. So, okay, thanks, Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, number 8, discuss and take action on designation of Community Development Authority to act as the body responsible for the recommendation of a tax increment district project plan and boundary to the village board. Who's through?
I can take this one.
Brian, do you want to take this?
Do you want to take it? I'll take it. I'll introduce it, Chair Zellner. The village is in receipt of a request to create an overlay to TID number 3, tax increment district number 3, due to the expiration of the expenditure period for the district. The purpose of the overlay is to finance the remaining grading, utility, and road construction in that part of the business park. Requests of this nature usually go through, in part, the Village Plan Commission as well as the Joint Review Board. However, this type of request could also be evaluated by the village's Community Development Authority as allowed by state statute, as well as how the creating ordinance for the Community Development Authority was stated. In this case, a review and recommendation of the TID number 3 overlay request may be better facilitated by the CDA, as the land use recommendations of the affected area have really already been evaluated by the Plan Commission and board as evidenced through the adopted comprehensive plan. So the bulk of the anticipated decisions for this particular request are very likely more associated with the pro forma for the remaining public improvements. Therefore, in this case, the CDA may be the better body, if you will, to oversee. So staff is recommending approval of the request to name the CDA as the authority associated with just the TID number 3 overlay request, not a blanket request to move forward. But this may serve as a test case, if you will, to have that body serve in that capacity. I can report that, just a quick review of some area communities, McFarland, Winona, Milton, which is near Janesville, Stoughton, operate this way. Their CDA does these types of reviews. So it's not uncommon for a CDA to be involved in TID amendments or creation. So again, staff's recommending approval, but available for question.
Questions?
I think it could be a very positive thing. But I do have a couple things that I would like to bring up. First of all, if the CDA starts doing these actions, I would like to have the meetings videotaped and put on YouTube, because they will have authority and responsibility, and I think that goes along with transparency. And I would also, and I don't know when this could happen, or if there'd be any changeover in the CDA now or in the future, but if there is, other than having business people or just those in the development or construction field on the CDA, I would like to see a citizen at large who doesn't have either background, so that we're getting more of a mix of ideas and opinions on the CDA. Thanks.
Okay, Brian?
So just to comment on that, I don't have the statute in front of me, but for the CDAs, there is specific language in the statutes identifying the type of background that members have to be on that committee. So I'm not sure if what you just requested, Nyla, would be, I'm not saying it wouldn't comply with the statutes, but we'd have to take a closer look,
Okay.
because there is kind of unique language in that statute.
Okay. I'd like to, if you could send that to me, I'd like to see it, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on
Yes.
your previous item, the meetings will be videotaped. So the process, if this moves forward, we would be working with our consultant, Ellers, Todd Taves at Ellers. And the next step would be to put together a timeline with all those meetings, and those would be publicly noticed and videotaped.
Thank you.
So what is the reason for the transition? I mean, we've always had it done with the planning commission, correct?
Sure. So, and again, in this particular case, the request has more to do with, I would say, the nuts and bolts or the numbers of the infrastructure associated with that section of the tax increment district, rather than big land use decisions, because those essentially have already been made by through the past covenants and so forth for the business and industrial park. So there probably won't be a whole lot of debate about land use, but more about project plan costs and things like that. So we thought this would be a great idea to reinvigorate or invigorate the CDA, give them another task or directed purpose. And as I mentioned, this is commonly done in other communities. But in this case, right, it is a departure for Waunakee, but again, could be a good shot in the arm for that body to be involved
Is
in this
this
regard.
like, are we basically establishing precedent? This is how we're gonna do them all then after this?
That would be up to this body. The way the resolution for the CDA is as per the pleasure of the village board, essentially, on a case-by-case basis.
You know, I think the CDA was created, you know, we developed it or created a CDA, I think to maybe take some of the load off the planning commission because they have a lot of responsibility. I think this spreads out the responsibility, you know, to more citizens, to more people that are on the commissions. I think it's good for the community, and, you know, I think we should try it. I think it's, you know, time we move forward, and I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, any comments?
I'm fine with this as long as we're recording the meetings. Frankly, I think in the future, we should try and record all of our CDA meetings, especially if we're giving this committee more tasks, but I'm fine with this for now.
Is there a statute, Brian, like, cause I know we have to with our plan commission, do we have to a CDA?
You have the option of going to either the plan commission or the CDA. So if you adopt your resolution tonight, then for this particular district, essentially everything that we've sent to the plan commission in the past would go to the CDA.
What I'm asking is from the videoing or making sure it's out in the public in a different.
You don't have any obligation to videotape any of your meetings. I'm sorry if that's what you're asking. I mean,
Village board?
no, you don't, you
CDA?
just have to be open to the public. Now, I will tell you that the practice that the village uses is one that many other communities are using now, where you are videotaping the meetings, but there is no statutory obligation to videotape any of your meetings.
And I think, Chris, once we do our technology update, I think it'll be much easier for us to do these type of, you know, meetings and record them and make them available, so.
I mean, Zoom was, everything was available, so I agree with you, Gary, on that. So, okay, thanks, Sam. Aaron, any comments?
No,
I-
I'm fine with this.
Bill?
I think since this is something planning has already looked at, I think it's fine to go with it on this one-shot deal, but I wouldn't want to bypass the planning commission in the future on a regular basis unless they weighed in on it. But without all of that said, the final authority comes down to the village board. So I would make a motion that we, if we're ready for that, to move ahead with, authorize the Community Development Authority to act as the body responsible for the recommendation of a tax increment district TID project plan and boundary to the village for the TID 3 overlay request by MLG Capital.
Okay, so motion by Phil Owens, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Nella Fry. I just want to point out, just to make sure everybody's clear, this is just for TID 3 overlay right now.
Right.
We're going to go back and review these always. And Todd Taves in the meeting ahead. With Todd, we can go either way with this. I mean, it's what we want and it's at our disposal. So he didn't have any recommendation one way or another either, so. That said, any other comments? Call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion to adjourn.
He did that to you.
He did.
Do we have a second?
Any other seconds?
I'll second if you don't want this.
Go ahead.
Okay, Aaron Moran, second. So I will call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Abstain.
Abstain. I wanna go long.